Good evening and welcome to the Town of Limington Select Board meeting for April 25th, 2024. We will call the meeting to order at, I think it's
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will need a approval of the meeting minutes for April 18th, 2024.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Approval of the warrants for week number 14, payroll warrants number 39 and 40, $30,880.02. Appropriations warrant number 41, $35,121.10. The totals for week 14, warrant 39, 40, and 41 is $66,001.12. A couple of items that we have for reoccurring bills is North Coast Services LLC. That's our recycling, $202.35. Jensen Baird Legal Services, $1,406.25. Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $10,924.22. Matheson Tri-Gas Oxygen, I believe that's for fire and EMS, $583.51. WEX, that's the fleet gas card, $5,304.76. And MEMIC Worker Compensation Insurance, $8,135.47. We will await a motion.
Make a motion to accept as read.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve warrants 39, 40, and 41. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Purchase orders. Tammy, would you like to read the purchase orders?
Sure. Public Works Department purchase order requests. A request to pay Camerata for gear assembly for the Mac, $3,273.54. A request to pay Allegiance wiper motor assembly, $202.52. And a request to pay O'Connor for truck number 6, brakes, shoes, axle, and drums, $765.04.
I will make a motion to approve the Public Works Department purchase order requests.
I will second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Fire and EMS purchase order requests. A request to pay Fire Tech and Safety for a floating low-level strainer, $1,030.63. A request to pay Amazon for 2 pole saws, traffic vest, and 6 high-vis safety vests, $389.70. A request to pay Gorham Fire Department for training of 3 of our fire staff, $260. A request to pay the Fire Store for 7 South Park adapters, $410.13.
I will make a motion to approve the fire and EMS purchase order requests.
I will second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries.
Municipal. A request to pay WB Mason for hand towels and soap, $129.10.
I will make a motion to approve the municipal purchase order request.
I second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries.
And Parks and Rec purchase order request to pay Extreme Screen and Sportswear for T-ball uniforms, $865.
I will make a motion to approve the Parks and Rec purchase order request.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Old and new business. May 11th at 9 a.m. we will have beach cleanup at Moimodeo Beach. If anybody does come down to volunteer their time to clean up their beach, they will be rewarded with a free beach pass for the year. That's a $50 value for any town residents and a $60 value for non-residents. This is a great time to get out, enjoy the sun, check out the beach, lend a hand, and you're not expected to stay the entire time. A couple hours work will get you that pass that you want. We still have some open spots for the summer camp program. We have 2 summer camp programs. There's a 4th through 7th, or 4th through 8th grade program. That one's all full, but there are spots for the K through 3rd grade summer camp. Check out the Limington Parks and Rec Facebook page for more information, or you can message our rec director, M. Madison, at m.moody@limingtonmaine.gov. Weekly update on select board activities. We met with the department heads today to discuss transparency, communication, department synergy, and just making sure that all the employees in the departments know that, you know, the select board is here for them, and we're all a team, and everyone isn't just cogs in a machine. They are important to us. This town is a living being, and our employees are the lifeblood that keeps it moving. We have updated the Limington Town page. It now has the select board minutes from January 2024 to present. We did notice that there was a typo on one of our pages where it was showing that the public, or the transfer station, did accept brush. The transfer station does not accept brush or yard clippings at this time. However, after speaking with the Public Works Director, we're gonna see if we might be able to work with the state on getting on having the ability to at least collect some brush from this past storm for residents, make things a little bit easier. Fire department, during this past storm, they had quite a number of calls. That call number is up quite a bit. You have those numbers? Would you like to read them off for us, Jason?
Sure, the weekly update from the fire and EMS, number of calls for service this week is 11. Month to date 77, year to date's 236. 2 of which, 2 fires and 9 EMS. Let me see here, schedule status, the schedule, they've had scheduled covers for overnights let me see, I'll just read it off. The schedule was full with the exception of Tuesday and Saturday overnight. There was still 1 provider on each. He wasn't able to cover, fortunately Jeff Libby was able to cover from home until noon time, and Owen Sprague came in early and covered. The May schedule has a few vacant shifts at this time, and the postings are up from late signups. Trainings and meeting in-house, there was no scheduled trainings this week, but on Sunday, crews went out and tried the new low-profile strainer on engine 7. It looks like Emil was out of town Monday and Tuesday for training in Alfred. Matt Plumley also attended this training. Let me see here, any issues? Right now, the fire and EMS are currently 22 calls ahead of last April and still have 10 days left in the month. They are currently 27 calls ahead of last year's to date. So it's just another, you know.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, it's getting busier.
Yeah, a whole lot busier. Public Works, they have pretty much finished up cleaning up the brush from the sides of the roads. Now they're working towards other projects in town, finishing up the work around the ball field, the new basketball court, cleaning up the road that leads to Moimo Deo. There's a stump that's been causing some problems for a few individuals, and they're gonna have that removed.
On the public works side, just
Yes.
to add into that, Lower Tucker Road to the farm has been cleared, finished, and graded. River Road is done and graded and trimmed. Beaver Berry Road is now open. They've been doing their best to finish up the roads in town, and that storm was just a complete mess. And Sean has volunteered to work with Madison at Momodeo with the chipper when they have, on the second week of May, they have a cleanup day, and Sean has volunteered his time to go down with the chipper and to chip all the brush that's fallen over time down there as well. Just to back up, on the fire and EMS side, I had it written down, sorry. Whaleback 25 hydrant is out of service. They have been out and done back flushing on the dry hydrants. I believe there's one other one out of service that I didn't catch. I apologize.
Norton Road.
What's that?
Norton Road.
Norton Road, thank you, Tammy. Coventry now has been updated. They got all their new lights, the exterior lights and the electrical that was signed and PO'd is now done and finished. And the Libby's donated a new washing machine just for the turnout gear for the time being until we really they need a big machine. I think Emel's working on a grant for this down the road, but it was very kind of the Libby's to donate this washing machine for the turnout gear alone, so nothing's getting cross-contaminated, so.
A big thank you to the Libby's. That really does help, and it's good to have residents that, care enough to pitch in a little bit. Tammy, do you have anything you'd like to add to the weekly update on select board activities?
Yeah, I was a little bit late to the game, but we did meet with all the department heads right out here. It was a really good discussion with everyone. And one more thing, Emil had been doing a lot of homework on the ventilation system out in the fire and EMS. And we had 2 different options, and he did his due diligence, and we think we've come upon the best cost-effective unit that's going to be going out there. So I want to thank Emil for all of his homework on that to get the best value for the town. So going forward, not only the price was an issue, but the the service of it and the PMs and stuff like that and how long it would last. So we talked about that. But again, the talk with Madison on the Momodeo and all the programs that are going, it's really encouraging to see the number of kids that are signing up. There's still a few more openings, so I'm sure that he'll be getting those filled up before too much longer. So it's a very good program that he runs. So the kids will benefit very greatly from that. So.
And to add to that, for Madison, T-ball starts Saturday.
Yes.
And the track starts tomorrow.
Yep.
And he does have 70 kids signed up for the summer camp already. So he's got quite a project going.
Jason, would you like to read the informational bulletin for us?
Sure. So select board hours are Thursdays 2 to 8. On-air time meeting is Thursdays at 7. Transfer station hours are Saturday and Sunday 9 to 4, and Wednesdays from 12 to 4. A transfer station sticker must be attached to your vehicle's windshield for disposal of all items. Transfer station stickers are available at the town office for $20. No sticker is required to use the swap shop. The transfer station does not accept brush or yard clippings. General assistance office is open on Wednesdays from 9 to 11. Applications are available anytime from the town clerk's office during their normal business hours. Application must be filled out and accompanied with supporting documentation and must be signed. Planning board meets at the municipal complex the first and third Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Parks and Recs, cards and coffee are held at the old town hall building every Wednesday from 9:30 to 11:30. Come meet some new folks, play some games. If you have any questions or suggestions, please reach out to Madison Moody, our rec director, at m.moody@limingtonmaine.gov. And then one other thing, it will be posted on the town's website. It is a senior citizens of MSA D6 are invited to a free turkey dinner. It's a flyer that we're gonna have. I think Patty is put it on just recently. It's Thursday, May 16th, 2024. Dinner begins at 4:30, and it's at the Bonnie Eagle High School cafeteria. Dinner will be served by students and administrators. And to reserve a spot, you would want to contact Sarah at 207-929-2312 or srideout@bonnieeagle.org. And like I said, again, this will be on our website. So it sounds like a really good free dinner for the senior citizens in the town, so.
It certainly does. MS86's cafeteria does really well at preparing some high-quality food. So anyone that's got the time, if you're a senior citizen, we recommend going out and enjoying yourself. All right, that takes care of the informational bulletin. We're gonna have MS86 deliver the proposed budget, but before we do that, is there any comment from the public audience? Please, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie Lord Laughlin. Michael, I heard you mention a purchase tonight for $5,000 plus for fuel. I didn't catch what department, but curious about that charge. And is it kind of like a quarterly purchase or something other than a tonight purchase? And if it is, whatever it is it done on a, I don't know what type of fuel?
It's the fleet card for the fire and EMS department. It's what they use to fill up the gas for their vehicles. The town itself does not have its own pump, so this is the most efficient way of making sure that the vehicles have fuel. It's a purchase that we, or a cost that we get every month, right?
Yeah, it's
Every
monthly.
month. So,
Yeah, it's subsidized, so we don't pay tax on that as well, so.
And it sounds like,
It's for all the fire trucks, rescue, fuel, yeah.
so that's something that comes up every month. I just
Yeah,
heard
It's
it
part of
tonight. I got my-
pretty much the maintenance,
as a way of being more transparent,
and
we
the
have
department.
moved it, to the forefront so that folks can understand
Right,
these
thanks.
bills.
and it does cover the Department of Public Works, so all the town trucks and
All the town
graded, so, I
vehicles.
mean, yeah, so.
Okay.
That's
And
why it seems, is a lot of equipment that's covered in that.
And do we feel pretty confident that it's a competitive charge? In other words, we've checked out places to,
They will
Yeah.
get their
Buy
gas locally, generally speaking, and most of the time they're either getting their gas from Limington Variety or from Sleeper Supermarket. Driving out of town to get gas that might be 10 cents cheaper, you lose that just driving out of town.
thanks for the info.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bonnie. If there are no more questions from or comments or questions from the public, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the MS86.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. For anyone who's here, we have some handouts on the back table. If anyone wants to grab one to follow along, we keep it low tech because technology tends to just fail if you come here and then it doesn't work. And for anyone at home who's watching this, we will be posting these. We'll leave some copies here, so they'll be available. And we'll post it on our website. We have a lot of information on the website if folks want to access it. And I'll just say now, and I'll probably say it again later, if anyone has any questions individually, with me tonight is Don Pooler, our business manager, also our board chair, Nathan Carlo, and I am Superintendent Clay Gleason. And Don and I are available to meet with anyone, to go over anything, to explain anything, to, whether it's questioning line items or articles or any part of this budget, we're happy to sit down and talk with any member of the community who would like to talk about it further. My goal tonight is to give you kind of an overview. You have the packets in front of you too, and I'll reference a few pages and a few items from those as we go forward, and definitely invite any questions from you folks as well. So this year we bring to you a budget that is over the entire every amount. The final budget amount is up 6.38%. Okay, and I know most people will say now that sounds like a lot, and I'll explain more about that. It's largely salaries and benefits. So getting back to my talking points here, the one addition that we've added is a position for a teacher of English to speakers of other languages, sometimes known as ELL also, because we've gone from having a dozen to 15 students who need those services to over 30. And we currently have one teacher certified to teach in that area in 8 buildings, and she can't possibly cover all the services and meet our legal obligations. So we are adding a second position. So that is the only addition as far as positions. Other than that, we're maintaining our current level of programming. One of the things that I've talked about with our principals and managers is if you need something, use the current resources you have and use them differently. If you want to try, like the high school, for example, comes to mind, they're going to try some different programming, and they might not need a math teacher, so they can take that math teacher and turn it into an alternative education teacher without adding to the budget. So being creative in those ways, so we're not continuing to add. If we do find positions that through attrition we don't think we need, we're analyzing that before we hire any position. We're trying to decide, do we need this? So we've tried to be responsible in that way. As I referenced, the main increase in this budget and driving the increase is salary and benefits. You folks probably feel this pain as well. We were told we could expect an increase in health insurance anywhere from 1% to 11.5%. So we took a middle ground and put 6% as a placeholder in our budget for an increase. And the increase came in at 11.25%, almost double what we had budgeted. So we did have to add that to the budget, but we made a decision. The board had voted on this budget on April 1st, and we got that news on April 2nd. So we have to bring the budget back to the board at the next school board meeting. But Dawn and I decided that the best course of action was to take that difference, which amounted to about, I think, $600,000 with the number of employees that we have out of our fund balance, so that we didn't add to the taxpayers' burden. So this budget, while it's increased from the one the board approved, the impact on the taxpayer is the same as it was the night the board voted. But that was a tough hit for us. And then we are finding that, again, I'm sure this is not just a school thing. Towns, I'm sure, are facing this. Any employer, the labor market is in a crisis right now. And what we were finding is we were having teachers leaving and making $12,000 to $14,000 more a year to do the same job in Westbrook or Scarborough. And while we will never be able to bridge that gap fully, we needed to make some effort to bridge that gap. So there were three of our largest bargaining units were negotiating this year. Pretty much the vast majority of our employees. So we really had to negotiate more than fair increases to be able to retain our people. So that was a commitment we made. Typically, we might look to add other things that we need, but we made a choice to not do that and to put the money into our people, because without the people, there's no one to teach our kids. So that six. One thing I'll point you to the packet now. So on page 3, there's a chart and then a graphic next to it. And if you look at the graphic, there are gray bars at the top. And those gray bars represent all of our expenses that are not salaries and benefits. Okay, and you can see that gray bar is fairly consistent for the last 10 years. It hasn't really gone up or down a whole lot. It's the salaries and benefits that drive the majority of our increases, which makes sense because 75% of our budget is salaries and benefits. So, I know in the past people have said, well, buy less things, do less things, what you don't need that, you don't need that. Really, the major impact in our budget is our people. And so if we were going to have to go back and cut this budget, we would have to start eliminating positions, which would affect kids and the quality of what we offer kids. And so at this point, we feel like we're pretty adequately staffed. That's why we haven't really added anything. It's something we'll continue to look at moving forward. Our enrollment is a question that people often ask. At the start of, trying to think of it's from October 1st last year to October 1st this year, we were only 8 students different. We had 8 students less as of that October. So with over 3,000 students, that's virtually flat. We didn't have any grade increases. We didn't have any grade decreases. If you look at, on that same page 3, the numbers behind that gray bar in the column other on that chart, and you can see that in fiscal year 15, so 10 years ago, the other expenses added up to $12,600,000. In this proposed budget, it's $12,160,000. So we actually are proposing less than we did 10 years ago. So people will say, budgets, they always go up, they always go up. Honestly, the things that are not labor, aren't going up. We're trying to keep them pretty flat. So, and then even compared to last year, we are down almost $1.5 million from last year in that other column. One of the ways we're down is we had made an intentional decision because we have gone through a pretty extensive facilities assessment process to look at all of our schools and buildings. I know HBMRE, I had walked that recently with Principal Regan, and you know, the way education is delivered now compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago, the space requirements are different, and it's hard to explain. We have more special education programming. The students come in with a higher level of need, so you can't put a bunch of kids in a classroom and just call it good. So if you have had kids recently at HBMRE, they're kind of running out of space in that school. The portable is aging. It's probably reaching the end of its life, and that's true in a lot of our schools. So we really need to be thinking about what's next. You know, what's next for our building. So we've been doing facilities assessments. We didn't get as much participation I would have liked, but we tried to put out the word. We had some forums to talk about different ideas of what we could do moving forward, and we had limited community input, but we took that input and used it, and we've come up with some ideas of what we might do moving forward. None of it's binding. The board hasn't voted on it. The community hasn't voted on it, but they're just concepts. And what we're trying to do is how can we, without adding significantly to the taxpayer's burden, improve our facilities? Because if we stay on the pace we were on with what we did in Buxton 15 years ago, that school is almost 15 years old, and it's our new school, right? It will take us 80 to 100 years to replace all our buildings if every 10 to 15 years we totally rebuild the school. So, you know, the idea that grew out of this work was a consolidation project potentially, right? And that would be hinged on if we can get state participation to support a project like that. So what we will be doing is submitting an application for all of our schools except Buxton to the state construction list, which is open until August. And we're hoping that with any luck, one of our buildings might rise high enough on that list to be funded. And the solution would not be to replace one building. It would be to look at some significantly large consolidation project, because all the information we're getting is the state likes to participate when you're having less roofs. You know, newer and fewer, not just replacing the different schools that you have. So there would be a loss with that. Some communities, well, equally all communities might kind of lose their community school to have a centralized, even elementary school potentially, but everybody would have a new K-12 experience in a plan like that. So I don't want to get too bogged down, and I'm happy to talk to anyone later or anytime about that because I'm pretty passionate about it. But where I was going with that is we did not put significant additional funds into our facilities this year. We have our operating budget, which will allow our facilities department to do what they need to do to maintain. But for example, one project was the bathrooms at the high school always need attention, and it could easily creep up to $1 million to renovate all the bathrooms in that building. But we're not going to put $1 million in this budget to go into bathrooms for a building that we hope maybe in 5 to 10 years we're renovating anyway. So some of you might be familiar with the Budget Advisory Committee. Hopefully you've at least heard of it. We do welcome, you know, the town of Limington to feel free to send someone. I know it does conflict with these meetings is the problem. I remember we usually meet Thursdays, and of course you folks are busy, but if you ever had a liaison or someone you wanted to appoint who could report back to you, that's a community process by which we seek community input on the budget to see what they feel the community will tolerate for increases. And they were kind of concerned that we weren't putting additional money into our facilities, but the whole rationale was we needed to pay our people to keep our people. And that was our focus this year. So again, that was the major focus. A couple things also I just want to draw your attention to on, I don't know if it's in this, I feel like it's in this chart. So that, not that same chart. It's on page 4. There's a chart and a graphic looking at the history of revenue sources. And you know, if you look at it fairly simply, there are two main sources of revenue. It's either the local taxpayer or it's the state money that we get from the state. And if you look at the percentages in that first column, you can see that they pretty steadily decline from 2015 to the present. We were at 46.5% state funds in 2015, and we're anticipating this year 35%. So it's not only that our salaries and benefits have gone up to increase the budget, we're also getting less revenue from the state. And so where does that land? It lands on the local taxpayer. So that's something that we don't have control over, which I'll say a little bit more about too, that, you know, one of the things we're seeing, and this happened in Buxton and I think in Limington this round, I'm guessing that you may have had some reevaluations done fairly recently. I'm not sure. Do you know when your last?
We had an emergency reevaluation
Okay.
done, but we need to have an official reevaluation done in the next 2 years.
What we're seeing is that because the state tells us how to divvy up the bill, basically, is the simplest way to put it. They look at their valuation numbers, which are usually a 3-year average, about 2 years old, and then they say, this is how much you charge the towns. So we don't sit in the back room and say, let's give more to Limington this year, right? We don't do that. So we have to do what the state tells us based on their numbers, which don't always match your numbers, and that creates some contentiousness. But it looks like the state is determining, I'll put in my air quotes, that Limington has a higher ability to pay and Buxton has a higher ability to pay. I think the taxpayers might disagree with that. And so that accounts for why Limington has a higher percent increase than, let's say, Standish, right? And so for those of you who can't see what I'm talking about, who might be listening, the overall tax increase, so the budget increase is 6.38 on our operating budget. The tax increase is on average 6.55. But that doesn't go evenly across all 4 or 5 communities, because Fry Island is part of this too. Leamington's increase is 7.5, right? So higher than the average. Standish and Hollis are lower than the average. And as I said, Buxton and Limington are higher than the average. So that's something that we feel uncomfortable about, because when we're creating our budget, we have to kind of look at that overall number. And we can't look at just any one community, but we do try to look at the whole picture and say, like this year, the Budget Advisory Committee felt very strongly that any community going over 8% was too much, that was too much. And even getting close to 8% is too much. But if we had tried to cut it any less, we would have, like I said earlier, had to start taking away from our students. So that's where we landed. So that is the budget we're presenting, and those are some of the driving factors behind it, and I would be happy to pause and take any questions that anyone might have. Dawn, I'll just look. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Come up to the mic, please, Bonnie. Thank you.
One thing just occurred. I may be paraphrasing, but as I understood what you said, the state determined that Limington had a higher ability to pay along with Buxton, and you did acknowledge that some of us might not know where that statement comes from, but I wanted to just pose, does that come from them looking at our evaluation? And if so, did the evaluation that was done, I know you said it was emergency, Mike, and I'm a little aware of what it was, but did we get that evaluation, that reevaluation, which might have, I'm not criticizing it exactly, I'm just trying to understand, that might have driven this determination by the state that we have more of an ability to pay? Do you know what we're referring to, that our town did an emergency reevaluation? So does that show the state that we have a more robust evaluation here?
The reevaluation, it doesn't seem like it really affected that at all. If you're unfamiliar, before we did the reeval, the percentage increase that we had to our MSAD 6 budget, I believe from 2022, was 12%, I believe it was. So the reevaluation really didn't affect it. It's essentially what, you know, the state says that we're able to cover.
Because of the reevaluation.
No, it's based on their numbers.
Yes, because of the reevaluation.
Can
I mean, if you have some information on this, please.
Please have it on the mic, it would be helpful. Thanks.
I know that each town has to report to the state what their valuations are. So it's based on that, based on home sales, based on all those factors. They take that into account, then they do a 3-year average for each town, and that's what gets reported to us on what we call the 8279, which is our funding formula.
There you are. Thank you.
could I just add, I did not want to imply that anyone's doing anything wrong. Towns have to do this. You have to. I just wanted to connect the dots on the implications, because what I was realizing in Buxton and talking to the select board of Buxton is that even the selectmen there hadn't quite realized the direct connection between that. And it's no one's fault. I mean, you have to reevaluate the property values in your community. That's something you have to do, and it does impact the tax base, but it does hit the school budget almost doubly, right? It affects you in your community and the taxes you assess, but it also affects the way the state applies what we bill the towns for, right? So it's almost like a double whammy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's frustrating that they're also giving us less. So they're saying our towns can pay more because our land is valued at more, right? Our properties are valued at more. So they charge more taxes, then they charge the school more, but then they give us less, right? So I feel like we're losing all around. All of us are losing all around, the towns, the schools, and the taxpayers.
We take a back seat to towns like Scarborough and
Yeah.
what have you.
Yeah, and I will try to refrain from, sounding negative about any other community, but there is a community in York County that is a low receiver. They don't rely on state funds that heavily, but they actually saw increases in their subsidy. That if they had a graph like that, now it would be a lower number, but instead of getting 15%, they went up to 18%, while we have steadily dropped from 46 to 36%, when I would argue that our taxpayers need more relief. So I point that out just to know that we are cognizant of our community and what our community limitations are financially, but we also have to operate the schools, and we are a really big district. People look at our numbers. I didn't actually read the number out loud, but it's $63 million in change is our budget. That's a big number. And somebody pointed out to me, well, if you take 6% of $63 million, that's a lot of money. Yeah, absolutely. That's how math works. I get it. It's huge. Like if you have $100 and 6%, it doesn't sound as bad, right?
6 million though.
But 6 million, but 63 million. That is a lot. And like I said, that's why I like that. Looking at it, that other column. It isn't that we're continuing to add things in the districts. It just we have to pay people. We are. I believe we are still the largest employer in the district, right? There are no businesses that employ more people than Bonnie Eagle, and 57% of our employees live in the community. So these tax increases affect more than half our employees directly. So they are very aware of this as much as other people in the community are, and we still have openings for jobs. If people don't want to drive into town to work, I bet we could find a job for people who are willing to work in a school system. So I'll put that plug out there too. It's not just teachers, and I know some people think, oh, I wouldn't be qualified. You come talk to us, because yes, you might be. If you are a rational human being who enjoys working and contributing to the community, then I bet we could put you to work in a productive way. So come on and see us. So I'll pause again if there are any other questions.
I totally understand what you're saying. My daughter is a teacher in the MS-80 6 system,
Yeah.
and I own businesses. You got to keep the employees happy, and it's a bad workforce right now because it's just the money.
Yeah.
They can leave really quickly and go elsewhere. It's hard, and it's really hard.
Yeah, just another example. My cousin works in a district on the coast. Let's just say east of 95, one of the east of 95 schools, and he told me he had 60 applicants for a two second grade openings. 60 applicants. We might not have 60 applicants for all our openings in a hiring season, and they pay significantly more, and they are seen as a place that people want to be, both for the pay and other reasons. So we had to do a pay correction to try to, again, keep the people we have, but if we continue to drop in pay, what are we going to get? We're going to get the people who don't get hired other places. They're not the people who are the best, and that's not okay for me, right? To have our kids have just whoever's left. Or rely on people's goodwill to stay with us. Because we have a lot of good people, right, that other people passed up on, and we want to keep them. And it's frustrating to see people leave for the money because they don't have other reasons to stay. So we're trying to look at other things besides money that we can do to retain people too, but there's only so much you can do.
Yep.
For those listening at home, the proposed budget is $63,315,837.96. The revenues would be $23,453,959, leaving with a balance of $39,861,878.96. From that, the local contribution of the different towns, we're talking about 10 million from Buxton, 13 million from Standish, 5 million from Hollis. Limington would be at 6 million. Thank you, Bonnie. 6 million for Hollis. Limington stands at $4,383,499.84. So we are still, I mean, the increase went up more than a few other towns, but we're still paying one of the least amount as far as the budget is concerned.
And then just another number I'll put out there, and there's a focus on 6 flyer. Would this have gone out? Yeah. So I have a draft, but this will be going out soon. And it lists in one of the pages, the per pupil expenditure for area schools. It looks like maybe 15 or 20 schools. This is not in your packet.
Okay.
But it'll come to your mailbox. Are we mailing it still? We're gonna mail it? Yes, we are mailing it. We talked about maybe not, but we felt like we should. So it basically would rank order schools in the area on how much they spend per student on their education. And the state average is $17,654 per student. That's the state average. Bonnie Eagle is $15,896. So that is, about $2,000 less than the state average. And there are only 4 districts lower than us that are in our area. So I don't think that means we're cheap. I think that means we're fiscally responsible with what we offer our kids. And I went to a future options fair at the high school today. And if you don't have kids in the system right now or haven't been around lately, some of the amazing things that our schools are doing. This was a whole morning spent with colleges from Bates to UMF to Thomas College. I saw a former student recruit. I was so proud. So I was the middle school assistant principal for 10 years. And I remember this young man when he was not always, let's just say I was the assistant principal and I knew him pretty well. Okay, let's put it that way. I spent a lot of time with him, and there he is in his Marine uniform, recruiting some of our current students into the Marines, giving them the pitch about how they serve their country and financially how it will work out for them. And I was so proud of that moment, right? So we have kids that go on to do amazing things from Bonnie Eagle because we offer things. Our robotics team is nationally competitive. When some of these schools that spend a lot more than us don't have robotics teams nearly as competitive as ours. Our sports programs, our girls running teams, our football teams, our drama programs. We are a match of anyone on this list for what we spend. And so that's why, it's for people who criticize or have a hard time with the increases, I just want to remind them that I think it is really the lack of industry in our community that hurts the local taxpayer. We don't have businesses or commercial properties to carry the load, so it falls more heavily on the local taxpayer. So I know that's hard because people don't really have to, it's not in their world, right? And it is in our world, but I just want people to know we recognize that and we understand that. So it's hard, and we're trying to do the best we can to balance all those competing interests. So, all right, thank you.
Got one more question here. Yep. Bonnie?
So I think the answer to that question a minute ago was yes, because of the reevaluation. No, it's okay. I think we all kind of, without any casting any negative or positive to that objectively, because of our reevaluation, which arguably had to be done, it did make this, your language was it made the state think that we were in a better position to contribute more or whatever. So that is the broad brush way of what happened here. No, again, no criticism. I'm just trying to say we're looking at, a big 7.54 difference, which may or may not be higher or lower than before, but it's still the second highest increase here. And as you said, Buxton and Limington, both of us, Buxton and Limington both, had that, had that determination by the state that we could pay more because we were reevaluated more. Yes?
Right, the
We were
evaluation, I would
reevaluated
assume,
what we were.
ultimately, yes.
Okay.
Which, in flip side to this, we have a reevaluation by a professional in the next year or two, it ultimately could change it lower. I mean, it's all gonna come back to the reevaluation. They go off the state. It's not their doing. The state says you have to give this much to this town, this much. That's the increases per the state, not done by the school board or the school committee.
I hear you.
Though I will say, once again, you know, even before we did the reevaluation, the percentage increase that we contributed to MS 86 was greater than a few of the other towns. Did the reevaluation change that any? Yes, but, you know, still.
Thanks for the discussion. Thank you. Another topic I'd like to just have your input about, Superintendent Gleason, since you're right here with us. And it sounded like you had a lot of sort of positive feeling about the idea of consolidation. And I want to just sort of ask whether that idea is really a given at this point, or whether it's still in process, whether there'll be a chance for all kinds of us to contribute to that idea, or whether it's just coming from above somewhere. And if it's really only at this point a kind of half-baked idea, I wouldn't mind if we didn't get into it too much. But it sounds like you, and I've heard it before too, it sounds like you are sort of thinking it's a given. I'll wait to see what you think.
I prefer the phrase partially formed than half-baked, but I'm kind of, I kid. I understand your question. It is definitely not final. We went through a process of, it started with forming a committee, so we had some school board members, some staff, some parents. The parents were mostly also staff, because when we met, it was impossible for people to get out of work, but they had a parental perspective. And we just started looking at, working with an architecture firm, Harriman Associates, to just sort of, more the engineering side of them, just to look at all of our facilities and to get recommendations. And they helped take us through a process of what some different options might be based on like property we own and what are the current state of our buildings. And there is so let me talk about the process. So then we had that committee meet. Then we put out a thought exchange. I put out a thought exchange, which is like basically a survey. It's hard. I have a hard time reaching people that aren't parents, because we don't have their emails easily accessible. I could have done better bringing a flyer with a website or a QR code or something to the town offices. And I think we did have one hanging here at one point, whether or not it got a lot of attention. So we were trying to invite community input from people who weren't necessarily parents, to just get their thoughts on all this, and what do you see as strengths and weaknesses and where we should go. So there was an attempt we had probably 800 people participate in that, which is a lot, but it isn't. When you figure, when I send a message out on a snow day, I'm sending it to 7,000 contacts. So 800 out of 7,000 is not a lot, right? So we tried. And in that process, we got a lot of feedback, and there was a lot of support for an idea, hesitation about consolidation because of what you lose, but the realization that we could gain more than we lose potentially. That was sort of the general feeling of the people that participated. And it was not binding. It definitely is not binding or not final. So we did that. We had a couple in-person forums in June, but the problem is it was T-ball season, right? And it's the nice weather, and nobody wanted to come to a meeting in the high school auditorium, on a beautiful evening in June. And then we actually tried to have some more meetings. It was actually in the gym, I think, in June. And then we had some more meetings this fall, once we had narrowed some things down, and the limited input we got was supportive of the idea in general, but not a slam dunk, not a for sure this is what we're going to do. And it was really very straw poll-ish in that it was just to give us a sense of where people were coming from. We had a presentation to the school board, and I can't remember exactly which meeting that was, but that meeting's recorded, and anyone can go on our YouTube our website or our YouTube page, the Bonnie Eagle YouTube page, and all our board meetings are recorded. And I feel like it was March, maybe the second meeting in March, the first or second meeting in March, Harriman did a presentation with a lot of this information in it that someone could go look at. And it was really just to inform the board. So there have been no votes. There is nothing formal. It is an idea that I believe in. I actually dubbed it One Bonnie Eagle, because part of what I've seen, I lived in Standish, Steep Falls actually, while my kids went through school, and had two kids go through the system. And they went to Steep Falls Elementary, they went to Georgia Jack, they graduated from Bonnie Eagle. I had one go to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, right? I had one go to Southern Maine Community College. So I've had a front row experience to what our schools do for our kids, but I also see the sort of fractured nature that can happen. As a taxpayer, I got a flyer in my mailbox from a previous, town council in Standish asking me to vote down a building project in Hollis for the school. And this was 15 years ago. That's not a community working together, right? That's people looking out for their own interests. So this concept is that we're one district, they're all our kids, and how do we provide the best experience for all of them? Because it would be prohibitive to try to just build schools in every community. And again, I would love to take any of you who want, to walk around HB Emory. What goes on in the school is amazing. The people are amazing. The kids are amazing. The facility is just sad. That principal cousin I talked about is principal of a brand new school in that community where they have 60 applicants and pay $15,000 more. And they have STEM labs and sparkling hallways and beautiful large classrooms. So, people have asked me, what happens if we don't get this project? And there's a chance we won't. We're kind of going back a little bit to the drawing board to see what the community will support to try to kind of fix up our schools. What we learned in this process is that if somebody walked in the door right now and handed us $30 million and said, spend it all, if we could get people to do the work and we could find the time to do it, that $30 million would only bring our schools up to code and put in handicap accessible bathrooms, basically. You wouldn't get any additional space. You wouldn't improve the auditorium at the high school. There's so many things you couldn't do, but you would at least make the schools up to code and handicap accessible. So that's sort of what we're facing. So if we don't get this bigger project or it isn't supported in the community, which is a chance that could happen too, we have to kind of come back and see what are we going to do, because we're going to have to put money. This year it was our people. We're going to have to start putting money into our facilities because they are all aging and they're not getting better. And we've really taken good care of our buildings over the years, and that actually works against us a little bit because the whole joke, this is why we can't have nice things. Well, it's kind of the opposite. Like, we've really taken care of our things, and so we don't look as bad as other places on these applications for support because our things haven't totally fallen apart. They're kind of still hanging on. So that was a really long answer to say it is not final, it is not decided. There is a fair amount of concept behind it, but not a lot of detail, and it will absolutely come back in front of the community. And we should know a year from now if we have a chance to finish high enough to get any state aid through financial support. And if that were to happen, then it would get real. We would then start to engage the community more, beat the bushes to get people to come out and be part of these conversations, to put these concepts in front of people with a little more detail, just to see if this is what the community supports. And ultimately, the board has to vote on it, the school board has to vote on it, and the community would have to vote on any kind of project that we would do.
What's the time frame for something like that?
Yeah. So the question is, what is the time frame? I will make you come all the way over. And that is a great question.
That's a good idea. If you can just
Yeah.
repeat it. If the state says you're a
Yep.
candidate now, does it put pressure on everybody? Say, we got to get
Nope.
this money?
No, I would say it's sadly the opposite. I did an interview with 2 high school students today for the school newspaper.
Just repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. What would the timeline be, and would it be there would be their sense of urgency to get it done? Thank you. So I met with these 2 high school students and took them through this process that we had done, and they are seniors, and they said, "Oh, wow, how long will this take?" And I said, "Well, on the quickest would be 5 to 10 years." Right? And that would be if we finished, normally, history tells us the top 10 people on the list, schools, districts, are selected for projects, and the state can usually only fund 1 a year. So, and they only open the list every 7 to 10 years. So if we were 3rd on the list, we're probably 3rd in line, which means it would take 3 years longer, and by the time you design and go through a whole progress and get the process and get the voting done, you're looking at 5 years as an aggressive timeline. The further down that list you go, you're adding years on. So I would say 5 years would be the soonest. We would start in earnest, but we wouldn't be hurried. There wouldn't be a rush. And I know I would feel very uncomfortable rushing into something like that, because I also realize I've been around long enough in this community to know that people do have their feelings about their community schools. And I'm not one to ignore that, right? I wouldn't want to just kind of try to steamroll it all and push it all through and ignore all that. But I know other communities have gone through similar things. Even Buxton is a small example of this. If some of you might remember that Buxton had several little village schools before they had the big community school, and people were some people were terrified of their kids going to this big school. They're going to get lost, swallowed up. And now you walk around that building, and I think they are so proud of that school. And in fact, one of the comments through this process was, well, what about Buxton? Are we leaving Buxton out if we build a brand new elementary school and Buxton stays in Buxton? I talked to the principal and he laughed. He's like, I think people love our school, and I don't think anyone in Buxton is going to feel left out because the rest of the district gets new things, and Buxton, still has their school. So it was something we would proceed very carefully with, get all the input we could, make sure, do better than we did to try to just get people to come out and be part of the process. So.
Presentation today was on March 18th.
Okay, thank you. March 18th is when the Harriman presentation to the school board was captured on camera, and they kind of laid out much of what I talked about. And I think if we don't already, we have some of this on our website, like some of the, we actually had a person building a specific website just for this, but we hit a little hiccup getting that to go live. But eventually we'll have all of that on its own, kind of website. Got a little far afield from the budget, but it was good questions.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Not a question. Mine.
Of course not.
Thank you. I just, thanks for this conversation. It sounds like it will be continued. I'm here in Limington tonight, you're here in Limington tonight. You're well aware we have a community school here in Limington. And if this is on camera right now, I just want to be speaking up as one person in my community who's aware of the very hard work and the very noble work, in my opinion, that a lot of people are doing at HB Emory. I don't know that much about the shape of the facility. I've certainly heard over time some of the things that needed to be done there. And I'm talking about the teachers, the administration, and the incredible custodial staff there. And so I just want to admire them and thank them as a member of my community right now.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other questions? I will end with a personal note. I personally believe that there is nothing more important to a well-functioning society than a well-functioning school. Before fire and EMS, before police, before public works, everything boils down to making sure that we have competent and well-adjusted individuals reaching adulthood and entering into the workforce. And the only way that we can do that is through a well-funded and efficiently run school department. I'd like to thank the members of the budget committee that have come by today to present the budget. It was extremely informative, and we do appreciate all your hard work. With that said, if there's nothing else to come before the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Have a wonderful night.